I'm calling Aaron and Don, and I want them to fucking. Like a balloon pop. But I didn't see, that's why I saw the record control button. There we go. But like I said, I'll table it. Because I think it was Kara who drafted. That's how long ago it was. See, Kara drafted it for me. Everything terrible, like Bible terrible. So that's that. And then the fair chance order. Older in there. So there is a. I think Paul was one of them. The only thing. On now. But I. Okay, cool, thank you, because I was the same way. Thank you for the angel stuff, because I was like, oh. I felt like that's.
Yeah, it was like, what did you do? This and I found
Well, hold on.
eventually I got to the point where She's like, that's like a
Discussion.
All right, so you were in transit also then? Some residents of Ward 5 asked me to attend.
Second point on that, so, down the road.
Okay. I'd like to call the meeting of the Ordinance Committee to order, it being Tuesday, February 13th at almost 6:40 p.m. With me, I have Counselor Bartley, Counselor Anderson Burgos, Counselor Roman, and I'm Counselor Vacan. I'll take a motion to open item 1.
Motion to take up item number 1.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item 1 is previous meeting minutes. We had the minutes of November 28th distributed prior to the last meeting. Has everyone had a chance to look at those, and can I have a motion?
Yes, Madam Chairwoman, I would just like to make a motion to amend to include me in on attendance. I know I came in a little bit later, but it says that I wasn't in attendance, and yet the minutes reflect there were 5-0 votes, so.
Okay. And you weren't voting virtually?
Yes. So motion to approve as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion to take up item number 2.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So item number 2 is a street vendor license application for Mr. Manuel Conton to sell Latin foods on Elm Street. Is Mr. Conton here?
No.
Okay, so I would just ask
Motion
that we
table.
table it
Table it, yeah.
because,
Where on Elm Street he was? It's a very long street.
Oh,
and I just
hang
didn't
on.
know who, what ward.
219.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so there's a motion made to table till the applicant can
Second.
attend. All in favor?
Aye. Motion to take up item number 4. Or no, sorry, number 3.
Three.
Sorry, I'm
I was going to
tired.
say, is Counselor
Sorry.
Sullivan? I would also
Counselor number 3.
I would also like to note that Counselor Sullivan is in the chambers.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item 3, filed by Counselor Sullivan, that the City of Holyoke adopt Mass General Law, Chapter 39, Section 23D, in order to allow committee members to miss one meeting during the public hearing process. Counselor Sullivan?
Thank you. This came to my attention via Andrew Smith and attending a Conservation Committee meeting. So right now, for some of our boards and commissions, if they miss the public hearing, then they can't vote. But there's a state, there's a state ordinance that allows them one time to miss, and then they can, as long as they listen to a recording or read a transcript of that meeting, at the following meeting, they can then vote. So I think the rest of it's self-explanatory. They've had a couple of problems from time to time with the meetings, with the public meetings, and then not having a quorum or a proper number of people that can vote on it. So this would eliminate that problem.
It affects the planning board, too.
Yes, yeah. So it seemed to me pretty straightforward. It didn't seem, yeah.
Okay. Counselor Bartley?
Yeah, I support, thank you, Madam Chair. And happy Valentine's Day, everybody.
Almost tomorrow.
And I support this wholeheartedly. This is a great order by Mike, not surprising. And just want to apologize to my friend Mike, too, because I was off my game last week due to my health. I was under the weather. and you took a couple of jabs in full city council. And if I was on my game, I would have been prepared a little better, but believe me, I'm on my game now. So I assure you that won't happen again. This Chapter 3923D, which I downloaded this afternoon, it is very straightforward, but here's the thing that I want the committee to know, that if somebody misses one meeting and one only meeting before this person should vote, the member has to certify in writing that he should say he or she, has examined all evidence received at the missed session, and which evidence shall include any audio or video recording or a transcript, and then the written certification has to be part of the record of the subsequent hearing. I mean, this is
formal.
this is really
formal.
tight. And, you know, I recognize the importance of this when we had some shenanigans. What a shock relative to the planning board. What a shock up on Hampden and Appleton Street. When just nonsense was going on, a particular planning board member decided to do whatever the planning board member had to do to as a delay tactic, because one other member couldn't vote. And this is just some of the nonsense that happens. I'm glad Mike caught it. I'm glad Mike found this chapter and verse in the state law. I wholeheartedly support this. And I already have a copy of this, so if anybody wants to read this, I can submit it to the committee. So that was a great job by Mike.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard on this?
Motion to approve?
So I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And just one last comment on it is, we got to give a lot of credit to Andrew Smith. He did a lot of the work and research for me.
And so it'll probably be a good idea for a form to be developed that would accomplish that,
Well,
in line with the law that,
Well, just for consideration, do we, so now, we recommend that it be adopted, so we're also
I
recommending
think we
that,
have to refer to legal for
refer to legal,
form
put it in legal form? So do we need to we have to redo our vote here?
as a
Motion to
motion.
reconsider?
Second.
Well, we can approve the order, but then we can also vote to refer it to legal.
So moved.
Second.
And usually we stipulate if we would like legal to bring it to the city council meeting or back to the committee. But it seems like we're
council.
interested in having it go right to the
Yeah, really,
council
it's pretty
with our
straightforward.
recommendation, if that's reasonable. Oh, great.
This is
Okay. We're not missing
government at its
anything else.
best.
Okay, so is that a motion?
Yep, motion, yep.
Do I have a second?
You do?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, great job.
Good job. Motion to take up item number 4.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Item 4, filed by Counselor Sullivan, that a complete review of Chapter 42, Fire Prevention and Protection, be undertaken. Many sections are outdated or need to be reviewed and updated. Some sections are being ignored or circumvented. Article 3, which deals with the actual composition, staffing, and benefits of the department, is vague at best and receives less attention than the sale of cigarette lighters, as detailed in 42-19. Counselor Sullivan, I would just note that we have taken this up before. We did have representatives from the fire department here. They indicated to us approximately 3 months ago that they had language ready to bring to the committee, but then I guess there were some internal changes or some things going on where we were asked to wait. So I put it on the agenda again to keep it moving.
That's
Counselor
okay.
Sullivan.
Let me give you an update on that part of it first of all. I talked to Deputy Chief Jeff Prespakowski. That's who was here with us the last time. After further consideration, he didn't want to come to the meeting without the chief with him as well. And as I think most people know, the chief had a death in the family, and so they can't make it here tonight. So, but they'll be ready to go for the next meeting. And also, I reached out to Josh Garcia. He sent me a letter. I'd like to just read you the highlights. I recognize that you're looking forward to have a discussion with the Ordinance Committee on Tuesday, which I feel may be a good start. Unfortunately, I was not able to make arrangements in my schedule to join you at tomorrow's meeting. It is in my interest to start the conversation and take proactive steps within our individual capacities to encourage greater collaboration, to update the language in the charter so that it is consistent, reflective, defined, and clear to the public. And I think he omitted ordinances. So far, there's only one thing I've seen, and we'll get into that in a few minutes, about the charter.
Right.
And I'll file another motion to take that up in charter and rules, and Nelson can run with that then.
Okay,
So-
great. And I'm sorry to hear about the death in the chief's family.
That's all I didn't know.
I didn't either.
Sorry about that.
We can, I'll entertain a motion to table to our next meeting then. Do you think that would be reasonable?
No, I've got enough for us to get started on.
Okay.
I think it's, if it pleases the committee at some
sure.
point, just to start collecting our thoughts and how we might want to approach some of these various issues. You can give me some guidance and I'll go back and do more homework, or we can start to take it up here. Maybe we might want to divide this up into 20 different orders. I don't know, I'll leave it at the pleasure of the committee, as I've got some of the stuff highlighted.
Do you want to just go over the overview?
Sure. Okay. All right, well, let's start. Also, so that was that. William Malisay, I've also contacted. He's the president of the union now. He wanted to be here tonight also. He's been preparing for it to cover certain of the controversial issues on here, and he also couldn't make it tonight. I've suggested to each of them that if they can't make the next meeting, give us their suggestions in writing, and we'll put them in the record. It's good for us to hear from everybody. We want to hear from everybody. We don't want to exclude anybody from the conversation, and we don't want to hear afterwards that they weren't consulted. So that's where I'm at.
I have all my notes of every time we've taken it up.
Okay. So the first one I'd like to call his attention is we have one ordinance, performance in theaters and other places of public assembly. And this is, I think relevant throughout all the ordinances. Is this something that really should still be in here? And I'll just give you an abbreviation. No person shall conduct or engage in any theatrical performance except singing, dancing, or playing musical instruments in any motion picture theater. And it goes on, blah, blah, without the approval in writing of the chief of the fire department. I think it's time, we used to have vaudeville. I think this was written back when we had vaudeville performances and gas lanterns and what have you. We ought to take a look at some of these. That's an example. Appointment of deputy inspectors. It says the chief of the fire department hereby is empowered and authorized to appoint as many deputies as required. I think we might want to give some thought to that. Appeals. So when, a business owner, a homeowner, anybody has, even if they want a permit or something and they're denied or fined or called to task, as far as appeals are to the chief of the fire department and nobody else. So your only form of resolution with a problem is from the issuing body. That doesn't seem right. Penalties, and this is penalties for any owner, leasee, or occupant of building, premises, or structure, any person in control of such articles, materials, good wares, and other merchandise, and that goes on, shall be imposed fines as imposed in Chapter 1-10. So the fines that can get imposed for violating rules of the fire department, and I can't find that, this seems like sprinkler codes, something alarm codes, $100. So what's to really motivate some of these landlords and people that are violating laws? It's a $100 fine. You know? Where's the threat? Where's the penalty of not doing it? But however, mind you, should you get caught for a second offense on selling cigarette lighters without license, it's $300. But you get caught without a smoke detector, not $100. So, in my mind, second offense or third offense on the smoke detector ones, yeah, how about $2,500? You know, where we're suffering enormous expenses responding to a fire, loss of life, all of this stuff, and we got a $100 fine. That's no threat to the people violating these laws. Here's a good one. False alarms, interfering with the fire alarm system. No person shall open any of the signal boxes connected with the fire alarm telegraph system. Telegraph system. And I can go through the entire section for you, but what's interesting, there's no mention of making a false telephone call or a 911 call or a cell phone call. It's just for messing with a telegraph alarm box.
But there have been many instances where things were disabled.
Yeah, well, I mean, it goes on, but this is all it pertains to. False alarms are, the only false alarms are interfering with fire alarm system telegraph boxes. And as best I can see, last reviewed in 1972, 46 years ago. Keeping on going, then we get into licenses that the city issues for storage, use, sale of petroleum products, explosive materials, or flammable materials. Now, I understand that the fire prevention department had undertaken this 4 years ago, and I don't know what happened to it. They're trying to find, they had done a statewide survey to see how we compared. They're going to get this ready for the next meeting. But an example here is if you're storing 1,000 gallons of fuel, the license for that in the city of Holyoke is $15. Now, this isn't somebody keeping a can of gas for their snowblower or lawnmower. And I can cite some other examples. I think this one's a little late now, but there was a company that we all know of that was storing liquefied paraffin in 80,000 gallon tankers in the middle of downtown Holyoke, sometimes 6 at a time. That's 408, almost 500,000 gallons of flammable paraffin. Their permit, $125 a year. That's a pretty sweet deal. Now, and we go right down the whole list. I think we ought to at least get ourselves in line. These are ridiculously low numbers. It's not gonna hurt businesses as such. If you've got somebody storing this much fuel for $15 a year, they're running one heck of a big business, and the rest of the taxpayers are bearing the burden of supporting what we need to have in place in this city. This fire department, the size of the fire department we have, and they're not carrying their fair share of it.
Madam Chair? May I just ask a question, please?
Yes, I do have Counselor Lisi in the queue.
Okay.
Can we take a pause and let people jump in for a bit? And then you can continue, Counselor Sullivan. He's given his overview of what he's proposing in his order. Okay. Counselor Lisi, and
Thanks.
then Counselor Bartley.
So Counselor Sullivan, I really appreciate you being the one to identify the arcane nature of this ordinance. And I'm really glad that you have been in touch with the folks from the fire department. I do think that it may be a productive use of our time if we can work in a working group outside of this committee to draft a number of changes that we could then present to this committee in sort of a redlined document that looks at the current ordinance and then the revisions that we would make. And I'm happy to volunteer to be on that working group with you and the folks from the fire department. I do think that until we have suggested amendments and ways that we could envision changing, I think in the few times that this item has been before us, you've really impressed upon us the need to make these changes, but now I think we're at this place where we need to have recommendations for what kind of changes would take place. And so I would, again, be happy to form a working group and use some of my time outside of like these evening meetings to figure out what those proposals might be. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Counselor Bartley?
Yeah, that's a really good idea. Well, I was just going to say, if you know, to summarize these now, Mike, you know, the way you're doing it is great, because I think you've kind of hit the highlights, and I've really kind of come to understand that there's more than a handful of spots in that chapter of the Code of Ordinances, Chapter 42, that probably needs some review. So I'm kind of hopeful that you've taken a minute to call out the ones that really are pertinent to you, and you've listed those to the chief so he can respond in kind. It would be nice also if you gave a copy to me, and any other committee member wants one, a written list. It's because it's going to be extensive, I can tell. A written list of the ones that are relevant that you think should be updated, so we can have a little, instead of just chapter, instead of the language of the ordinance, we could have something a little more in depth. You know, the various sections inside the chapter. So I mean, I'm kind of following as best I can on my phone with what you're saying, but it would be nice if I just had this ahead of time so I could be more prepared.
So if I can just jump in, before we would do anything outside of the public meeting, I would want to have the list and the markup and feedback from the department with language, because there's a lot of interested parties, property owners, the departments, the people within the departments, and I want to make sure everything is discussed and documented in public. Then if there's further work to be done between one meeting and another, that will be publicly articulated and people will know what's coming back to the meeting from the work group. I rather have everything out and shared before we break into a separate group. But Councilor Sullivan, were there any other particular points that you wanted to bring to our attention as we're seeking to have people come into our next meeting with language?
Yep.
All right.
Well, I'd like to get to some of the, those were to me, the no-brainers.
Mm-hmm.
All right, but we ought to take in mind, there's some pretty controversial ones in here.
The alarm issues, right?
Well, no, yeah, the alarm issue, sure, but we got the issue of residency, all right? It says,
Oh, okay, of the employees.
right,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we have a residency requirement for the fire department in the city. Now, some of that seems to have been changed or ignored through the process of collective bargaining. I checked back in my notes, and there's another order I've filed that's disappeared regarding nothing to do with ordinance, I don't think. But, you know, to find out how, through the collective bargaining process, ordinances of the city can be negotiated away. And that's what's happened with this residency requirement, all right? We've also got in Article 3, the composition of the fire department, it says, our ordinance says we shall have 156 members. Now, I checked with Bob Judge a year ago when we first got into this, right after the tragic fire, and at that time we had 120 members in the fire department. As of today, I checked with Kim Counter, we have 127 members, and that includes secretaries, right? And the two link together. A year ago, 44 of the members lived outside the city, did not reside in the city. As of today, 41 reside outside the city. Now, I'm not saying whether that's right or wrong. I know what Springfield's done, but Springfield draws from a much larger population than Holyoke does to staff their fire department.
Well, and just to that point, we strengthened that ordinance after it had not been complied with approximately 4 years ago. we closed the loophole on that ordinance, and yet it's just being ignored.
You know, I don't see how, you know, anyways. I
That's an
think,
enforcement issue.
yep. And then we've got the question, if we, you know, should we even be stating in an ordinance what the should it be
Exactly.
156? And it says that we will have 9 deputy chiefs, 10 captains, 24 lieutenants, and 101 privates.
Those are
You know?
good points.
Well, I don't think, you know, that might have been true in 1938. I don't, with the
60,000
changes
people.
changes in technology, the reduction in the number of buildings in Hoyote, the size of the city and everything. I don't think we should be stressing an exact number as what it takes to serve the city. But it's something we need a good, open discussion about. If we're going to have an ordinance, we should live with it. There's a couple of others like that. I won't get into any more. That's one good
It's fair to
example.
say
There's a couple of others. The last one I'd like to touch on is in regards to the fire commission itself. All right? The fire, and this is where I think, you know, I'll bring it up here so we get it out. And I think we'll send it to Charter and Rules. But in researching the charter states that we shall have a fire commission of 3 members. All right, so that is in there. However, in our ordinances, not in the charter, it says they shall serve without compensation. All right, so I think I think that part of it is interesting conversation for the Ordinance Committee. That's not a charter thing. I think for the charter part, is 3 the right number? You know, it's interesting to me that we have other commissions and bodies that have 5 members, 7 members. They receive a stipend, and none of them are more important than the fire department, in my opinion. But we only have 3 that don't even get, and serve without a stipend. But the biggest problem I see with it is, and this is a part in the charter, they are only appointed, it's solely by the executive. There's no approval by the council. Having not been around city politics for the last 100 years, I can't say, it almost seems to me like the fact that the council has no say in who they are results in the fact, well, then we're not going to give them any money.
I don't know.
So, you know, and to me, that's one heck of a job when you read what their duties are, what the real duties of a fire commissioner are supposed to be. I'll end it there.
All right. Well, thank you for that overview. That gives us a good sense of the different areas, which are many. And we look forward to maybe a clean listing with some recommendations around those from you and whoever's been working on it since, let's see, when did we first take it up?
Took it up pretty quickly after it was filed.
Yeah, we've had it up a few times. Since February, then October, November, and here we are, almost a year later, so. And remember, the initiative for this was all around the alarm systems and how they were communicating and whether they were operational and
Yep.
whether they had been tampered with by residents and or others. And that, to me, I mean, just from the safety perspective is where my main focus is, but there's a lot that can be done here to clean it up. So if everybody's had their piece, I'd entertain a motion to table. And
Second.
do we want to table to the next meeting? Are they going to be ready?
Well, I'll put it this way. I'll be ready with a much more detailed breakdown. I'll get it to the entire committee well ahead of time.
All right.
The issues, and we'll have another chance for the 3 groups involved to be here and come and weigh in on whatever issues they want.
So we will table it to the end of February.
End of March, you mean? Or not? Yeah,
No, we're on the 13th, so in 2 weeks, we would take it up again.
27th?
Is
All right.
And did you say, so I hear a motion?
I'll second it.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion to take up number 5?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item 5 was filed by Councilor Jordan, that an ordinance be created or current ordinance amended to address the placement of memorials, dedications, naming rights, and related matters on public property in the city of Holyoke. We had taken this up a while ago, and in my notes, I had that we had tabled it for legal language. And I don't know if it was in the transition with you, Crystal, or after that. I'm not exactly sure.
I read through a draft with everyone, and then they wanted additions added based on the Purple Heart Trail.
I'm sorry, based on?
Purple Heart Trail.
Oh, right.
So I looked into some of that. I also received a communication from the Soldiers War Memorial Commission, and they provided a little bit of their opinion as to how the language should read regarding veterans memorials and monuments, etc. So I've edited some more. I don't know. I can certainly email this around if you want to read it for the next meeting.
That would be great.
Yeah, sounds good.
and we
Sounds
can-
really good.
Bring it back, because I don't think there were many changes other than adding those in. So it'll just be, we have to figure out where this goes, I guess,
What do you mean?
Okay.
as
you
far
mean
as in the ordinances and how to distinguish different numbers and letters and all of that. So this was more of like a rough draft of possibilities, I guess.
Does that sound good to the committee?
Sounds good.
So moved.
Okay, then I'll entertain a motion to table,
Second.
awaiting receipt of the revised legal draft, which we will take up at the next meeting. So I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion to take up item number 6.
Second?
Second.
Item 6, filed by Council Roman, ordered that the City of Holyoke establish through ordinance a Human Rights Commission multi-member body of the city. The commission shall advocate, serve as an information resource, and ensure residents' rights are guaranteed pursuant to local, state, and/or federal law on the basis of race or color, gender, gender expression, physical or mental ability, religion, socioeconomic status, ethnic or national origin, sexual identification or orientation, or age for all persons within the City of Holyoke. The body shall be appointed by the mayor with city council confirmation. Council Roman?
Yes, thank you, and thank you, members of the committee. I've been working with the law department for this for a while, since I first got into office, and recently, the reason why I refiled it, as well as I was on the now infamous Councilor Leahy's Hello Holyoke Facebook group page, and I had seen a resident had listed that someone had painted very derogatory, very racist signs on her window. And recently I was a part of a circle process training at the YMCA where someone had vandalized one of the Y staffers' cars and put phallic and really derogatory painting all over one of these staff members' windows. So a lot of the times these people were asking, where do I file this complaint? Where do I file this harassment? How am I able to log this? And me as a city councilor, looking for that data and information, or providing a space or an opportunity. I think this Human Rights Commission and other municipalities has done well. I know and I believe Cambridge has a Human Rights Commission that is successfully working in the state of Massachusetts, so there is another municipality for us to look for. I just would like to see this pass this body, and I will deflect to the law department because we've been working for a while, and I know we don't have draft language, so this is another one too, unless we have draft language for us to look at tonight. I would like to see us just have a conversation, state our opinions, and maybe table it as well, Madam Chair, because there's no even legal language for us to debate on or say whether we want this commission here or not.
Okay.
Because I don't have anything drafted.
Okay.
Unless you do.
And just so you know, if language does get out to Ryan before the meetings, then he will copy it
Copy,
to
yeah.
us. So the things that are coming to us between now and the 26th, he usually would put on the table for us.
Okay.
Just as a matter of process.
Yep, thank you.
Council Bartley?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So Northampton has a Human Rights Commission. The way it reads to me, it's kind of an advisory board. So I don't know what Nelson, your thoughts are on that. I mean, you and I discussed this before, I mean, about, resolutions. I mean, I know they have their place in government. I mean, we do proclamations here, we do resolutions. We get kickback about, oh, why don't you just talk about the budget? Well, my response is we can walk and chew gum at the same time in this body, believe it or not. So we can juggle more than one ball at a time. So I think this is somewhere in between an ordinance and a resolution. So I think it's got a little more heft than a resolution would. And when I hear examples like that, and then there's also examples of graffiti defacing property in which a certain group is depicted in a derogatory manner. There's no place for that. There's no place for that anywhere. And I'm thinking maybe if there is a body, I guess this would be a group of volunteers, if there is a body for whom these matters could be addressed right here in this building, in this room, preferably, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And then if that body can have under ordinance, be an official commission of the city, again, it's advisory, but that official commission could report back to the city council. Then a city councilor who might not be aware of this stuff would hear about it, and then perhaps, if possible, an ordinance could be created to give powers to the police or to another board to possibly, if somebody's caught in the act of that, or some kind of a penalty. Now, not a criminal penalty; there'd be a civil, obviously, but we can't do criminal stuff here in this body, but we certainly can impose civil things, and that's, to me, that's where the value lies, and so there's that. Thank you.
And I would just also comment that I think it's valuable to have a place to process things. I just think we have to be really careful about balance, and that whatever issues we are addressing, that it's all issues under the arena, regardless of what side of the argument or the philosophy an individual might be, be it liberal or conservative. So I think we need to be, cognizant of that. But I appreciate the spirit of it. And the mayor also has an advisory group of some sort. Councilor Roman.
That's what I was going to update. So when I first came into office, I looked at it and I'd heard from constituents. The advisory board is all but defunct at this point, so a lot of the members are gone, or, I met with them even when I first came into office. All of them were from one particular ward even, and we talk about ward diversity, they're all from one specific ward. And it was a really lively conversation with them, but exactly what Councilor Barley's saying, I just want to make this a little bit more meat, because there was an advisory group that had the opportunity to print out reports or, talk with the police department, educate, say, hey, what's going on? And so I think that does have its merits in Holyoke, and I agree with what you're saying, Councilor, as well. Just being even a sounding board, a place for a constituent to even file just a form with the commission, just saying, hey, this occurred to me, so they could be data points. So we as a body can know what happens in the city, because if you ask me how many things occur in a year, I don't even know or have those conversations. So I agree, and again, without language, I would like to, with anyone speaking, after any other colleagues want to speak, I'll make a motion to table as well.
Councilor Lisi.
Thank you. I support the idea of a Human Rights Commission that has some teeth, so that I think that when a group is only used in a loose advisory capacity, that there's no real purpose or mission driving their meetings, and therefore they tend to disband very quickly. And I think that serving as a site for data collection is an important feature for a Human Rights Commission to take ownership of and to serve this council, yes, in an advisory capacity, but to give some real teeth to developing proposals that we might consider adopting into ordinance form, or again to be the storehouse for data acquisition. So I look forward to seeing different models that we could explore. and then moving forward on something that again, is set by ordinance.
So
Motion
would-
to table?
So would it be fair to table for language?
Yes.
And we'll wait to hear back from you and Crystal?
Yeah, sounds
And
good.
once we do, you'll let me know when
So
you're
moved.
ready?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion to take up 7 and 8 as a package if we could?
Is there a second?
Or no, sorry,
Seven, not
8,
seven.
sorry,
No?
I'm tired. Just 7 by itself.
Seven?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Filed by Counselor Roman and Lisi that the city council adopt a rent control ordinance for the arts and industry overlay zone and other zones as appropriate in order to protect current residents from being displaced as new residential and commercial tenants begin to seek out space in our city's center. I know this came up at city council, and I know a statement was made that it was a state level issue, but I just wanted to put it out here because it's just been there. Counselor Roman?
So yes, Councilor Leeson actually got an email from legal, so it is a state statute, and it's, finding out it was actually a lawsuit, so it was based off of a legal case. So basically, the state says that we cannot mandate rent control, it has to be optional only. We can accept provision section 4, but that basically it's optional. So property owners and developers can opt in or opt out. And that municipalities that adopt such regulations shall compensate the owners of rent-controlled units and the amount of the difference between the fair market rent and the units below market rent out of our general fund. So I'm gonna deflect to the co-maker of the order, but I'm just gonna say that this is complied with for me because of those two provisions, unless we can advocate, and I would love to advocate with Councilor Lisi on the state level, to change the state law.
That's where it would
Because
be.
without the state laws changing, we're basically, I want teeth. I know, Councilor Lisi wants teeth with this too. I really want rent control in the city, but without the state legislation behind it, I don't see what we could do, so.
Counselor Lisi?
Thank you. So if I may suspend the necessary rules, I would just like to have Crystal confirm that we're interpreting this correctly.
Sure. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
To suspend rules so Crystal can
Address.
us on this legal matter.
So you are correct. There is a state statute that is basically a general prohibition with some exceptions, and you really can't force anyone into rent control. This came about in Cambridge, I believe, based on a case from 1994. And so that's why this all got overturned. There used to be a lot of rent control ordinances and such out there, and then after the prohibition, obviously they all went away. So you're correct in your interpretation here.
Counselor Barton?
What's the statute, please?
It's chapter 40P, section 4. P as in Paul.
My new favorite thing to read these orders and stuff. I might go for law school, Dave.
You wouldn't be the first
Never too late.
while in
Believe me.
chambers here.
Wait a minute,
Okay.
I had to when I was 36, there you go. And did it at night. Yeah, good to go.
Can
Thank
I
you.
ask another follow-up question?
Sure.
So I am clearly really interested in finding a way to make this work. Do you know of other communities that are doing something that gets around the idea of rent control but has the same impact essentially?
Section 8.
I mean, not really. This is
Wow.
pretty straightforward. There's no real loophole here. Like Councilor Roman said, I mean, there is like a voluntary way you could have people do it, but obviously without the city then providing the funds somehow, I don't think that's going to happen. And I can't imagine a landlord that's going to want to foot the bill themselves or not get as much rent as they're entitled to based on the property values coming up. So.
And their tax bills.
Well, I'm going to say we should definitely go to comply with for now, but it would be interesting to explore since we do have host community agreements coming in through new commercial endeavors such as the medical marijuana industry. I mean, I'd like to see if there's a way that we could create a fund that would help to or work to subsidize rental units in such a way that we can keep the cost down. I mean, it's a totally different order and totally different idea, but it seems like there's an opportunity for some creative thinking here. So on the motion to comply with.
Second.
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 All in favor?
Aye.
Motion,
Motion to take up 8 and 9 as a package?
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item 8, filed by Council Roman, ordered that the City of Holyoke, through ordinance, pass the fair chance rule requiring that the city itself as an employer make revisions to its current civil service process and eliminate any barriers, including the checking of the box during an interview and application process that may preclude applicants with criminal records from gaining employment with the City of Holyoke and/or its contractors, giving exception to any employment having to deal with the elderly, finances, and the youth. Refile order originally filed in January 2016. Item 9, filed by Council Roman, ordered that the City of Holyoke Personnel Department and its contractors review and make revisions in their current civil service processes and eliminate any barriers during an interview and application process which may preclude applicants with criminal records from gaining employment with the City of Holyoke and/or its contractors, giving exception to any employment having to deal with the elderly and the youth.
So I'd like to make an order that motion number 9 be complied with. And then on item number 8, I know this committee as a body, and thank you again, committee members, for taking this up again. I know we've discussed it here. Yes, the current city application does have that removed. I spoke with the Human Resources Department, or taking it up in charter and rules. It doesn't mean that the school department one doesn't have it, and of course they need it because you're working with children. So there's 3 different HR departments, we were discussing that. So they each have different application processes, but for me, the reason why I would like to codify this in ordinance form and legal language is because any HR director that comes in afterwards, and as of right now we have an interim, they can choose what those application processes, those applications look like, or future executives. And so for me, I just want to see this, put into ordinance form, so it doesn't matter if it's the HR chief now or in 20 years or 30 years. It's just fair across the board, and this just continues to be gone because it's not currently on the city application within City Hall, which I love, I appreciate. I just want to ensure that it continues to stay that way. And I don't think we have legal language yet for this either, correct, if I'm not mistaken? So either way, I know this is a conversation. I do know, and I spoke to you, Madam Chair, when we have 3 individuals who, from the plug, want to speak in favor, so we still need legal language. This, number 9 will be complied with. Number 8, I would just like to see some legal language for us to debate and continue to make this a permanent thing. If we're already doing it, that's great. Just continue it so it just continues to be that way in the City of Holyoke as an employer, because we're not doing it in City Hall, and I love that, and I think we need to continue to do that. So thank you.
Thank you. I just want to check in with the committee before we go to suspension rules, and I would just like to comment that I'm open to seeing language relative to what the city is doing. I'm not really open to requiring it of contractors because I think it's going to lessen the competitive ability of the city around bidding. And I just, yeah.
And I apologize, you were
Councilman.
correct in that, so in my refiling language, you guys did take that up as a committee, and we talked about that in the legal language form. It'll only say the city as an employer, because I do remember that was the committee's feedback, and I'm fine with that. I'll fight that battle in the future, but I want to codify, at least with the city right now, that the city continues to be that, and I do respect that feedback, and that came from the previous 2 times you've taken this up, because I know this is lucky number 3, so hopefully on the 4th time we'll go, but we did, and I made sure with the legal department that it will not say contractors, it'll just say the City of Holyoke as an employer. Thank you.
Thank you. So do you want to make a motion on
Motion to
suspension?
suspend the rules and allow the 3 members of the public to speak for a minute or less?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So, under suspension of rules, you can come to the microphone and make sure that it's on, and you need to give us your name and address.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good evening.
Name and address.
My name is Victor Colon. I am a longtime resident of Holyoke. I live at 18 St. Jerome Avenue, Ward 6B. I am here today to support the Fair Chance Rule submitted by City Councilor Nelson Roman in January 2016. It is now February 2018 and is still not law. I am a formerly incarcerated man who has changed his ways. I have found it difficult to apply and find employment opportunities due to my past convictions. Even though I have served my time, I am still held accountable for bad decisions I made when I was much younger. I have not been in trouble in over 12 years, and I still find it difficult to secure employment outside of hard labor, low-paying restaurant jobs, such as dishwasher or line cook. I have worked on learning new skills, and I keep getting denied the chance to apply my new skills, which I continuously work to improve. More importantly, I am continuously denied the chance to better provide for my growing family. If given the chance, I will pursue jobs in other sectors. For example, human services, the medical field, or in education, to make myself even better and contribute more to my community and local economy. I was a product of my environment. I just didn't know better. Today, I am still a product of my environment, an environment that is full of hope, love, and untapped potential. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Guys, my name is Luis Khalil Rodriguez. I am a long resident of Holyoke. I live at 58 Eli Street, Ward 1. Go Gladys. I'm here in support of the fair chance rule submitted by City Council Nelson Roman in January 2016. As we see, it is 2018. Though on the state level is law, seem not to be practicing it here in the city. I am a 36-year-old man who has been incarcerated back in 2002 to be rehabilitated by a system that I believe failed me. But I've been blessed with other prisoners who were able to take me up under their wing and educate me, allow me to help me get my GED and stuff of that nature. For me, I was put through a process system in the prison system by other prisoners through this mentorship process that we now practice today in the community and has helped bring members of the community together. I'm a longtime member. I've been out of prison since 2009, and mentorship has been a big role for us in the community when it comes to tribalism, which we call gangs, and other things in the community. If given the opportunity, myself, I was just trying to get a second job through connections doing an after-school program, and because the question is there, chances of me doing what I love and enjoy to do, and what I've been blessed and successful in doing, I'm not capable of doing. And there's just a lot going on that I believe needs change in our city, and I think this piece is big. As a member of the Vanguard movement, we work with, incarcerated gentlemen through mentorship, and now that we're able to work through all those barriers of tribalism, one of the biggest factors that we see is trying to get people employed, and this is a big barrier for them, which then the recidivism continues to remain the same due to this law not being passed. So I just want to kind of leave that on the table, that it's important, as you heard Victor sharing, trying to provide for his growing family. And that's something that we have, we also have family, so I'll leave you guys with that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You good?
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Counselor Lisi?
Thank you. As I said at previous meetings, I fully support this order. I'm just wondering, it seems like it's a simple policy change as opposed to an ordinance change, and it's a revamp of the forms that we're using. I'm wondering if, Councilor Roman, you could explain if and why there's more to it than that, because it seems like it should be straightforward at this point.
Yeah, so for the purposes I talked about, from the cities like of Cambridge and Boston and Worcester, they've codified it in ordinance so that way it's continuous, because when I talk to the HR head here, I know we're getting into that in charter and rules, the next HR head could come in and determine that they want to include that box on the application. This would codify that the city of Holyoke just isn't going to do that in perpetuity. And we're not doing it under Kimberly now and this HR administrator, but if in the future another HR administrator or executive comes into the office, if it's not an ordinance form, and granted, even though it's at the state level, they could choose to add that question back in or choose a different application. So we're not doing it right now in Holyoke, so please go apply for, we have Parks and Rec jobs, we're looking here currently, So you can go apply today, that's not on the City of Holyoke application.
Right.
But I want to make sure that that continues, so whoever the next HR person is or next mayor, that all of a sudden we don't get another application that then adds that in the future. So just trying to
Right.
solidify it.
Right, but I do think it is good to clarify that that barrier is
It's gone.
not
Yeah,
here
it's
now.
gone.
We did clarify
we did
that, I think, the first time it came
Yeah,
up.
yep, it's gone now, but we want to make sure it stays gone.
Yeah.
and then are codified in our ordinances.
Thank you.
Okay?
Thank you. So
I
motion to
think
table.
most of us believe in second chances.
Yep.
But the thing is, if somebody has a job and they do something that is criminal, then you're gonna get fired anyway. So I mean,
Exactly.
it's like all we all are looking for is an opportunity, but then it's our responsibility what we do with them, right?
So motion to table pending legal language?
Okay?
Second.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
And then motion for number 9 would be complied with.
Okay, is there a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye. Motion ticket number 10.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Item 10 was filed by, I know it was filed by Counselor Lacey, that the city council adopt an ordinance that phases out and prohibits the use of plastic bags in the city. Plastic bags are one of the greatest contributors to the trash and debris problems we have throughout the city, and many neighboring cities have passed language that we can emulate. Counselor Lacey?
Thank you. Under discussion, I don't have the draft ordinances from Northampton and South Hadley on me this evening. I was also interested in working with members of the community to review what those other communities have passed in order to make sure that the needs and concerns of Holyoke are reflected in something that we draft. So I'm not ready to move on this in a formal committee process just yet, but I do
Okay.
thank you for bringing this up in a timely manner.
Okay. Yeah, because I think it is important too around the education on the recycling and also on people littering and complying with those because, these things don't get on our streets by themselves. It's people putting them there, So, I'm sure we'll have plenty of things to talk about and what effect it might have on businesses.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of concerns and we can see how the consequences and perhaps some unintended intended consequences have played out and learn from their experience, so.
Yeah.
All right, so.
I'd like to work with you on this.
Great, thank you.
Okay, Counselor Bartley.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. Well,
Hope I didn't skip you anytime.
Sorry.
no,
Okay.
no,
Sometimes I'm like, not looking to.
no, it's okay. So,
Parochial vision.
so I have done a little bit of work on some of this stuff. I would also suggest to you that the city of Westfield is proposing something like this as well. But I think that we're going to find that the work we do now, I mean, listen, I have filed order after order and done plenty of volunteer time picking up trash and recycling on my own and filing orders like that. So nobody wants a cleaner city than me. And whether plastic bags are the culprit or whatever, there's a lot of culprits. But you're going to find if you look, so I hope we'll just table this tonight, but I think the main thing to do is probably give this leave to withdraw at some point soon, because whatever we do and whatever municipalities do from now until August of 19 is probably going to be preempted by the Commonwealth, because they have a draft law with draft legal language in place, and it says the following: nothing in this chapter shall preempt further limitation of a single-use carry-out bag by any political subdivision of the Commonwealth enacted after the enactment of this law. No, I just don't love the language. Provided, however, that any existing ordinance or bylaw banning plastic bags shall be null and void as of August 1st, 2019.
Oh,
So we could literally be spending, and as we've done here many times, hours on stuff that will ultimately be found to be null and void because the Commonwealth, now I'm looking through here, so it has a list of sponsors. It doesn't have anybody from the Fifth Hampden, I can assure you that. So nobody from the Fifth Hampden has co-sponsored this, or nobody from the Second Hampden, Hampshire has co-sponsored either. So the Western Mass co-sponsors are limited to 3. And there's a pretty good list here, co-sponsors. This is actually, probably 25. So it's House Draft 2121. It's dated January 19th. So this is, I just think that there's and this is stalled in the House too, by the way. It's stalled there. So who knows when they're gonna take it up?
Yeah.
But, I mean, I just think that we ought to, yeah, we should table this now, and maybe if you speak to either Aaron or Don and try to get a sense as, they can say, hey, guys, march forward, it's a good idea, or why don't you hold off?
Thank you.
Counselor Lisi?
Rep. Vega did share with me the language, and I understood that it was only a proposal at this point in time, as opposed to something that was passed. So there's no
a bill.
guarantees there.
Yeah, it's a bill.
Thank you, a bill.
Yeah.
There's no guarantees there. So I mean, I think it's important either way. If August 2019 becomes the, drop dead date in terms of when our ordinance expires, I think that, again, working with the community to ensure that there is education and outreach about the impact of plastic bags and why we're going to be looking to make this change either at the local level or state level is worthwhile. So I do think that filing the order and creating an opportunity for community engagement and dialogue around this issue is worthwhile in and of itself. So thank you for the suggestions. I do wish to table it at this time.
And recycling. Let's not forget about that. Counselor Roman?
Yes, thank you. You hit it right on the nail, Councilor Bacon. That's what I was going to say. I think that in conjunction, like I've heard from a few of the businesses in Main Street, mainly Seatown and some others who are concerned about this order. They have a huge walking population of individuals. And so, I've even seen conversations, well, they can get, reusable bags or this and that. I think exactly what Councilor Lisa says, more of an education. But I know I very rarely see recycling bins in South Holyoke, or there's only dumpsters for people to just dump their trash in with a lot of these property owners. Where's the recycling, capabilities?
You can turn your plastic bags in at the food stores.
Oh, but I agree with you in what you're saying is that we need to have a very
education,
public campaign around other alternatives. And I want to challenge the notion when people are saying that exactly what Councilor Barley's saying, I very rarely see a plastic bag. I see a lot of napkins from food establishments. I see a lot of food cups and
Certain
from
food
yes,
places.
from certain food places. I won't call them out publicly, but I do see a lot of that, and I agree with you. And I think it's even as simple as putting out trash receptacles. I know where I work in Nueva, we saw a lot of garbage where I was working. The minute that trash receptacle went out and Nueva adopted that trash receptacle in front of our property, all the trash gets in there. And we make sure, and I have a staff member go out, but the public is able to physically throw their trash away. How many trash receptacles? I know we have some of the, solar paneled ones, but how many other trash places are there available for our constituents to throw their trash away on these main streets? There's none. And so I just think exactly this needs to be a holistic conversation on all of those fronts before we just go outright with banning. I want to have those other conversations as well. And exactly what Councilor Lisi is saying here, from business owners, from the public, from different sectors of the community, whereas like I said, it might play out well in one part of the city and other parts of the city. I have people screaming at me, you're going to take rid of my plastic bags, and I'm from a Latino household. We literally hoard those plastic bags. We save them at home, and we use them as trash receptacles.
too.
Oh, so then see you have a nice little drawstring bag, and you stave them up, and you roll them in there. So I don't know if my Latina grandmothers
not
want to get,
whatnot.
exactly. So thank you so much.
Counselor Bartley?
Yeah, actually, I save all the plastic bags myself. So
I think all of us do.
I'm glad. I reuse them. So, but while we're on the topic, if anybody's listening to home, I don't only speak for myself, but I'm pretty confident everybody agree with me. It's just the trash and litter problem. Rick and I filed orders probably 5 years ago on fining and then on keeping the trash bins locked or at least closed. I mean, and nothing happens. And then, a couple of years ago, Kevin had us go on a tour of the wastewater treatment facility, and, several of us did. And they weren't complaining about plastic bags. They were complaining about little rags. He said, where does Holyoke come up with them? Because there's millions of them. And so that was their complaint. But the only point I want to make now, Madam Chair, is, and I've heard this from other DPW superintendents, that the best practice is to drive those street sweepers at least twice a year on every street. Well, in my time in this council, I mean, I know they come out once a year, but that's it. But it's not just an aesthetic reason, there's a practical reason for that. So stuff doesn't get caught down in the combined sewer and wind up in the plant and have to get, fished out. So, I mean, this is stuff, and I know the mayor's staff watches us, and, I just want to encourage them to really, get on top of GDF Suez with our trucks, which which we filed that order, hopefully they're repainted with the Holyoke seal on it instead of GDF Suez on the panel doors. I hope that's been complied with. I doubt it, but I hope it's been working towards that.
We have a lot of unenforced ordinances.
So it sure would be nice if they would start to get out there twice annually from the Fruit Bowl to the Connecticut River. I mean, there's a real reason for this. And then once we're doing it, we can all get behind a plastic bag order or just some kind of a cleanliness,
Keep it clean.
whatever. I mean,
Right.
I mean, if we don't all get behind me, we've done this stuff before. I mean, Josie's done it in Ward 4, Jason did it for, I've done it in Ward 3.
I mean, the
We all
papers
get
aren't
we all get
jumping out
behind
of the
that
cars
stuff.
by themselves.
It just, the trash does nothing but belittle all of us. It's despicable, disgusting behavior. Sometimes it's just 2% of the population causing this problem. 98% of us do what we have to, but 2% cause the trash and litter, and it's depressing, but we shouldn't stand for it. So let's do what we can on our end to mitigate it.
Thank you, Councilor Bartley. Councilor Lisi?
Thanks. The one last comment that I'll make is that in going public with this idea, a lot of people have written me emails about dumpster problems. And this committee had crafted some really great amendments to the dumpster ordinance a few years ago, making it really easy for not only the Board of Health to enforce the dumpsters, but to make sure that business owners and building owners were creating the proper cubic footage so that we weren't seeing overflow problems. So I guess, it's worth, in my opinion, I think I'm going to check in with Brian just to see the extent to which that's being enforced, because if that's an issue that folks are highlighting is still out there.
Yeah.
I mean, I was really proud of the work that we did in this committee to craft that dumpster ordinance, and I thought we created a lot of opportunity for enforcement that should be straightforward. And so to hear
Make
that
it
it's
possible.
Yep.
Right.
So to hear that it's still an issue, I think I'm gonna have to check back in to see what's going on there.
Okay. Okay. Everybody all set for now?
Motion to table.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion to suspend the rules and take up items 11 through 13 as a package.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion to adopt the report from the Commission on Disabilities for all three.
Second.
Can we hear what they're?
Yep, the motion
Under
is made, so
discussion.
it's on the table, so now I'll read the report. So, let's see. Not going in any particular order, I'll go by the order I have them. Looking at 545 South Bridge Street for Tony Garcia. I see the application, I see health issues, I see that there was a recommendation for approval and that there was a copy received by Don Welch on 125. So on that one, the recommendation is to approve. I see denied written on one, so let's go to the other one that looks positive. The other address is 11 Northeast Street for Gadiel Ortiz. So the application was received on the 24th. Recommendation that the application be approved if the family is still living here. So it seems there may have been some discussion that they might be moving. So
How are you
it's,
gonna find that out?
I think we should.
well, because it gets issued to the person. So if they're not there to
I-
issue it to, right? I mean, I can only say what it says.
Yeah, so I would say we should adopt the committee report and then ask Councilor LeBron Martinez to.
That we'll adapt it, but once it's ascertained they're still there, we'll actually give it, right?
I think we should pass it through this committee so that it's ready to go for the full council with measurements and
Sure.
everything like that in a legal form. And Councilor LeBron Martinez can let us know whether or not we should pass it in full committee.
Right, but before they go through all that work, shouldn't we find out they're still there?
Yes.
I mean, why make them go through all that? So could we pass it with the understanding that the ward counselor will verify that they're there before it gets referred to DPW? Does that make sense, Crystal? Well, I'm just thinking of the work. It's like to go out and measure if they're not there. Well, we'll leave it to the discretion of the department.
Okay.
So we have taken these up as a package, but, so I'll read everything into the record. We'll have to vote separately. So now we're on to 330 Walnut Street for Irvin Rodriguez. This application was considered, and it was recommended to be denied, that there was incomplete paperwork, no placard. Sounds like it's only needed for the bus to pick up and drop off.
So for the two that are in my ward, I actually would like to ask the committee to table, only because I know both these constituents well, but the J. Irving is a younger boy, and so the mother applied on his behalf, so I'm not sure what the process we would need to go through. So if I could just table that to speak to Don, because I emailed him on both, needed to speak to him, and only because of Tony Garcia, not from Mr. Garcia, but this will be, just to give the committee, that South Bridge Street, is where Morgan School is. This literally will be the 10th handicap placard that we have approved in the last 2 years for South Bridge Street. So the neighborhood association wanted to know when the meeting was, because they were actually going to recommend denial, because they want to ask the handicap commission and me to assess which handicaps placards are currently being used. Like, there's literally 3 or 4 in a row.
Maybe there are some that could be
Maybe there's some
eliminated.
that could be eliminated. Maybe there's some that, the person's moved away. So if you could just table it, because I would love to speak to the handicap commission. But if I give up one more regular parking space on South Bridge Street, I think I might get recalled. No, I'm just kidding. But if we
except that
could,
we didn't
no,
pass
we didn't
that.
pass that, yes. So if we could just table it just to allow me opportunity to speak with the handicap commission to assess how many in total on our South Bridge Street. I mean, literally, Madam Chair, I was just there driving by, there's like 3 or 4
Yeah.
within
Gotcha.
literally a walk period. So are they all being utilized?
Counselor Anderson Burgos?
Yeah, do we have anything set in place so that when they move, that someone is
You have to
notified?
file it, no?
The counselor, the
Okay,
ward
we-
counselor has to become aware, and then generally, I mean, anybody could
But
file
all
it,
of them
but
that are
that's
on
usually-
file, there's a record of which ones were approved.
Right.
So then I could follow up to ensure and work with the neighborhood
Right, but I'm
association.
saying, like, you're saying there's 10 on South Bridge, correct? So if there's 10 on South Bridge, are we sure that every single person,
Is still there, that's
That's
what
what-
he's.
that's what I'm asking to look
That's
into.
what he's gonna check on.
we should find a way to avoid that. Like, when they move, that someone's notified and remove that sign.
Right, but they don't always tell us, and they don't have to tell
Exactly.
We
us.
have to come up with something. I think we can work on something.
Yeah. But yes, if we could just table the other two, please.
Okay, so how about if we vote on the one for 11 Northeast Street? That was a recommendation to approve. Can I have a motion on that?
Motion to approve?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and then on 330 Walnut Street and 545 South Bridge Street, I have a motion to table.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so you'll get back to us on
Yes,
those.
please.
They'll be in the jacket, awaiting your word.
Dispensation, I promise I'll get on it. Motion to take up item number 14?
Approved for legal measurements. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Item 14, filed by Counselor Bartley, that the name of the portion of Coit Street that is west of Hillside Avenue be changed, and I believe it's changed to,
Yeah, first of all, we amended this
right,
a long time ago. It's east. Okay, that's one first. So that language, we amended
right,
that.
this is the old order that was in the jacket.
I know,
And
but
you
okay.
changed the name to
Merrick,
Merrick.
right.
I just want to make sure I get it.
That's Ward 6, right? Wait.
No, that's Ward 3.
That's Ward 3.
So, Counselor Bartley had asked me to pick this up again. We had picked it up before and talked about it, and we became aware, and this will have to be under suspension of rules, I think, for Crystal, but that a public hearing was needed. And I could not find specific notes in my records, so I couldn't remember if the public hearing was supposed to be held by us or DPW. I thought it was DPW.
So it looks like both have been done. Planning and DPW were done. They submitted letters. I sent all of that to Ryan when he asked me about the procedure. It looks like everything's been done. We just need final sign off from council.
Oh, so then all we need is what for the council meeting?
I think you just have to review the letters, just like any other recommendation coming from them, and vote.
And you're saying that Ryan has the letters?
Yeah,
Because
there
I
was-
haven't seen him in the jacket. I've been through that jacket, I think. I mean, I might
I
have
reached
missed.
out to planning and DPW to ask about it. Ryan had sent me an email asking about, what would the process be like, and I forwarded an email, and they were like, this is already done, and here's all of our stuff.
Oh,
So I forwarded all that along. It should be
oh,
done.
just recently?
Like within the last week,
Oh,
maybe
okay.
Thursday or Friday, whenever I was sending emails in abundance.
Oh, okay, okay. So then all we have to do is approve them.
I believe so.
Yeah, too bad.
Yeah,
We almost got it
It's all right.
done.
It's all right. We're getting there. We're getting there.
Well, we're very close. I just lost track of the process there,
Poor Chris
where
is gonna
those
be
letters
typing
were.
legal language for the next slide.
All right.
So I just want to make sure, it's the east part of Coit Street, not the west part.
I think we,
Okay.
and I
that's-
think we had straightened that out before it went over to DPW and planning.
Oh, we absolutely did.
Yeah, yeah.
My neighbor
so
screamed at me.
just
so-
for the final thing, we make sure we,
Yeah, no, that's okay. No, I'm aware. So, motion to adjourn.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much, everybody.
No, Nelson.